Welcome to another episode of Sketchy Situations, where I play Stroke of Luck, an actual play series using Ironsworn Starforged, a game written and designed by Sean Tompkin. I'm Sketchy, your writer, narrator, player, and generally everything for this channel. I want to remind everybody that hasn't done it so far and has returned several times to go ahead and subscribe. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'll let you know a secret. I'm actually this entertaining in multiple locations. I even hope to find you in Discord. Now with that covered, let's go into what happened last week. Last time on Stroke of Luck, Erin Slater swore a vow to Brendan Carr, a senior medic on Reprise. His vow was to retrieve an AI core from an infested ship that crash landed and complete its final mission. Erin is left with a ton of questions as Brennan skedaddles away with Evelyn the guard in tow. In the meantime, Erin finally meets up with Juro Quan and nearly botches the entire first meeting. He's forced to spill the beans on his situation just to get the guy's interest. Now they're setting out to the ship and already they might be running into the thing that was on the vessel to begin with, killing everybody. Now, one of the best pieces of advice that I've learned when it comes to oracles and results from moves is to go with the most obvious result. It keeps the story moving and it keeps it interesting. Trust your first thought. Until I get to that point, let's just find out what this creature entails. Using the creature oracle, I have a scale of medium, person-sized, basic form, spider/web weaver, first look, prominent tail, and its encountered behavior is a builder, which seems like the most spidery thing that you've ever heard of. But that's not a very mutated form. Maybe the tail is, but it's not creepy and corrupted. What's corrupted or mutated? It would be easier just to use the revealed creature aspect, but let's be difficult and use the core oracles, descriptor and focus, my favorite ones, and I have living system. Now, if I put this into perspective, our web weaver looks more scorpion than a spider, even though they're both arachnids. It has a rounder body and the tail ends in a pincer. But since it's corrupted, we'll say that it has two tails and each one of them acts independently. With living system, I'm going to imagine that it has a parasitic resident. It's already a part of its system. When it hatches, it consumes nutrients from the host very fast. So very few of these things actually hatch and make it to adulthood, let alone adolescence. Another interesting aspect is this parasite affects its overall DNA. So while it's growing in the egg, it mutates it. This one in particular has two tails. Now what makes it even more deadly on top of that is only the strongest mutation makes it to egg laying, which means a very strong version is passing on its DNA and is being mutated into an even more deadly version. So every generation is more dangerous than the last one. There's literally no reason that I needed to make it dangerous, but I didn't see a reason why not either. Now, as for a name, I'll admit I have zero ideas, and if you have one, please let me know. Otherwise, I will be back, likely in the next episode, with some terrible, horrible name, or maybe a generator will make me a better namer in the future. Good luck with that. But let's envision where we are now. Ghost is trudging through sticky material that attaches to any part that even lightly brushes across the fungi stalks. He finally looks up to see what might be dripping from above to cause the stickiness, notices the rounded back of a carapace under a mushroom cap, its legs working furiously at some mass that is stuck underneath of it. Ghost has one of two options: either to freak out and run, or to calmly turn around and gesture to Juro to head back the way they came. He chooses the latter of the two, and Juro has no idea what he's motioning for and is about to speak up. Ghost pinches his fingers together in the shut your mouth motion. Unsurprisingly, Juro is offended before he can begin to shout. Ghost points upwards. The hunter's head peers upward to see the arachnid underneath the mushroom cap. They make eye contact one more time and Ghost nods now that Juro understands and motions yet again for them to get moving. So we're making the first move of the day. Face danger with Shadow. Ending with a miss. A 5 versus a 6 and a 5. Isn't it awesome this happened using my absolute best stat? No? Just me? Okay. When a miss, you fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. Pay the price. So keeping it simple, paying the price, you are delayed or put at a disadvantage. Sometimes I truly love the vagueness of the oracles, and sometimes I really hate it. Let's envision how we end up delayed or put at a disadvantage. They try to go around in a bit of a wide berth, but in the first few steps they immediately find out it's booby trapped with web drippings. The feet are getting stuck, and when they pull them free, long tendrils of webbing are still attached, and then the webbing snaps. A loud popping sound makes them drop down, and they can hear the arachnid above adjust itself, alert of the noise now. Like tiny suction cups on the bottom of its feet, you can hear it moving around the stalk and then up on top of the caps, moving along the adjacent mushroom caps. You can hear the tails snapping loudly in one direction and then the other. Ghost holds his breath. He knows what position he's in. This thing has the high ground, and any wrong step, and it would see them immediately. It makes him think about this old school vid. A family takes a tourist expedition through a wilderness exhibit made entirely of genetically reconstructed reptilian monstrosities. Unsurprisingly, the tour goes bad, and they end up stuck in a rover. One of these creatures has stubby little arms, but is claimed to have poor sight on anything that's not moving. With heavy rain and metal between the family and the monster, they would have been completely safe. But someone inside panics and yelps, and the creature starts slamming against the rover. It's not until the father figure jumps out and distracts the creature did things turn for the better. Unfortunately, Ghost doesn't have a father figure right now. His best idea for a grand distraction is a random stony object that he is not thinking about identifying what it is and throwing it across the way, hoping that the loud noise that it creates is enough for them to make an escape. I'm going to secure an advantage, and I really am tossing between Iron and Shadow. Iron because he's throwing something heavily, really trying to make a big noise, and Shadow because he's trying to do something tricky. I'm going to use Iron because Shadow has failed me thus far, and that is a strong hit with a 9 versus a 7 and an 8. I'm going to take +2 momentum, bringing me up to +5 momentum, and I get a nice +1 on my next move. Ghost is completely surprised that this even worked. This is the most classic of the classics. The object bounced across some far-off stalk and ping-ponged enough times that the arachnid is convinced there is something over there. It jets over there. The strength of its legs are no joke. Ghost doesn't have any time to marvel at the scene. Juro starts pulling on him. We're going to face danger plus Shadow and hope for something a little bit better than last time. I have a weak hit. That's a 6 versus an 8 and a 3. So they succeed, but not without a cost. I have to make a suffer move of -1. I'm going to make this easy and take away some momentum, bringing us back down to +4 momentum. So now that they're being mindful of the webbing, that means they have to go even further outwards, and that makes them slow down technically, adding more time to their journey. But they're in the clear, and they're on to the next step. We're going to undertake an expedition plus wits because they're staying vigilant. If they feel like they're far enough away, they can focus on keeping an eye out and less of hiding. So we have a strong hit. That's a 9 versus a 3 and a 1. We're going to mark some progress on travel to the Infested Ship, bringing us up to 6 out of 10 boxes. And we reach a waypoint. With the worst of the danger so far averted, they won't run into anything else they need to worry about. Ghost pushes for another break. Whether Juro likes it or not, he takes that break. They're nearly beyond the taller mushroom stalks and in a clear area where they can view upcoming danger well before it should arrive, but they still sit back to back so they can keep an eye on each other. Right now they're kind of each other's survival. Ghost taps on the side of his mask and listens to the onboard wellness monitor, just recapping his condition in one ear. It starts up. Oxygen intake at expected levels. Blood pressure is slightly elevated due to extended activity. Mild dehydration. Low blood sugar. Overexertion is detected in the prefrontal cortex. Basic self-care actions recommended. Ghost taps the side of his mask again, ending the transmission, and leans forward onto his knees. Chill out, drink some water, grab a bite, and take a nap. That would have been a lot quicker to say. Juro responds, "If I understand your problem right, I think you're well beyond the basics to fix your issue." Erin says, "What do you know about my problem?" Though he can't see it, Juro shakes his head. "I would rather focus on one problem at a time." Erin presses, "Not even a teaser trailer of what's to come?" Juro takes a long breath and stands up, brushes off his gear, and looks back at Ghost expectantly. There's not much to say here. Conversation's shut down. Ghost stands up and starts to follow him. "And undertake an expedition plus wits." Miss. That's a 5 versus a 5 and a 10. On a miss, you are waylaid by a crisis or arrive at a waypoint to confront an immediate hardship or threat. Do not mark progress and pay the price. I'm going to pay the price, make it easy. A surprising development complicates your quest. I'm going to boil this down to my favorite oracle, descriptor and focus, and I have frozen technology. I'm going to go with the obvious thought here, and it's a cryo or stasis pod. Now I'm going to ask the oracle, is it still functioning? I'm going to go with an unlikely, which means I need to roll 25 or less for it to be a yes. And you can't get any lower than a 1. The answer is yes, it's still functioning. So, finally, what size is it? On the creature scale, I have medium, person size. So this is a person-sized cryo chamber / stasis pod, and it still works. Now envisioning this whole situation, Ghost is slowing down yet again, and Juro turns around, hearing the slowing footsteps. His tone is irritable and impatient. Your breaks are coming closer and closer together. We won't make it before this planet's nightfall at this rate. Has your health been declining as a result of exposure? Erin shakes his head. This has nothing to do with the vault. You're a big guy, making big steps, and I'm not as big as I used to be. Ghost huffs and waves his hand dismissively while he leans on the back of some oversized reeds. There's a heavy pause that Ghost doesn't like, and it happens too often during this trip. As long as he keeps his mask fully extended, they haven't shared direct eye contact, but he always feels as if Juro is looking past the lenses. Finally, after an agonizing pause, Juro speaks up. What does that mean? Ghost squints. Let's focus on one problem at a... His mocking tone is interrupted by a quick yell as he falls backwards, ass over tea kettle, between the wispy stalks, ending on a loud metallic thud. Juro rushes over to assist Ghost, but a hand pops out to show he's alive. He crawls out, rubbing his side, which is sore from falling on something. There's some kind of pod. Doesn't look too dinged up, but it dinged me up. They go back in between the reeds and work together to pull out this 7-foot container out of the growth. There's plenty of moss and other smaller growths that's begun to claim it already. Ghost leans close to it. He can still hear the hum of the mechanisms inside. Unfortunately, there's a panel with a passcode lock in between him and what's inside. Out of habit, he starts throwing sequences around in his head, trying to figure out how to open it. After a moment, Juro says, "Let's mark it and go." Erin asks, "All that lugging just to say we're not going to mess with it? You're not curious?" Juro shrugs. "Not enough to focus on it right now. I'm marking it and getting the authorities to pick it up later." "I wouldn't recommend that," Erin says. Juro turns to him curiously. "You know something I don't?" To throw the thought off, Erin moves back to the pod and says, "Look, at least let's find out what's inside." He taps away for a few moments, hoping this one won't suddenly explode under his fingers. Juro stands nearby, seeing some worth in the action of at least finding out what is inside. He waits patiently. Rolling gather information, we get a weak hit, a 7 versus a 9 and a 4. Let's grab our +1 and find out what complicates our quest further. First, let's find out what's inside though. I'm gonna ask the Oracle, descriptor and focus, biological storage. Duh. Now, let's find out what's the nature of what's stored inside. I'm using the revealed aspect from the creature oracle, and I have engineered biology. That's still not really saying much about the situation. Maybe the integrity of the pod makes them have to move faster with their journey, or what if he had a vision? That's a surprising development. A final question, what is this vision about? Story complication, enemy reveals unexpected powers, abilities, or influence. Erin taps a few times, filtering the information on the panel, when suddenly he feels a deep, pulling sensation. He recognizes the sinking sensation, but awareness won't stop it. He's pulled under his thoughts, under the forge, and under this time and space. He's not him here and now. He's sometime later or before. Images flash before and behind his eyes, images speeding faster than he can interpret them. Enemy. Power. These words stick with Erin as the same sinking feeling sends him deeper still, burying him in the void. A distant voice cries, "Don't remove your mask!" But if he heard it, he doesn't say anything. He just claws at his face, at his throat. He becomes absently aware of the mask on his face and claws at it. The air is suddenly thinner, but better than what it was. He takes desperate gulps of air. The void begins to fade around him, and he can see again. It gets brighter. He's on the ground. He's heaving. He's on his knees. He's breathing. He can hear Juro next to him. He can't make out the words quite yet, but he gestures, letting the hunter know that he can hear him again. It's the last kindness that he can afford. Slowly his breath calms, and he sits up, resting on his shins. The images are still flashing behind his eyes, like lightning strikes, but they're becoming fainter, dimmer, farther and fewer apart. He focuses on the wisping thoughts, and two words come to him. Enemy. Power. Erin is vaguely aware of time passing. You could have told him an eternity passed and he would have believed you. But eventually, he becomes grounded in the place that he is and opens his eyes. His face no longer hidden behind his mask, he makes full eye contact with Juro, and that uncomfortable sensation now leans on the hunter instead. He holds that eye contact and says, "Enemy. Power." Juro finally realizes that he's being spoken to. Enemy. Power. What do these words mean? Erin shrugs and very slowly makes his way back onto his feet. I don't know, but my guess is we're going to find out real soon. Alright, and that is the end of this episode's Stroke of Luck. A lot went down, and then not a lot at all. These bite-sized episodes can make it seem like it's dragging out an entire scene, but I'm glad that you're still here to play it out with me. If you're having fun, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, leave a comment on your thoughts, and to the reference that I left that I feel like was really easy. You can also find me on Twitter. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for your kind words and just listening in. I'll catch you next time, and stay in trouble.